This is a podcast where real doctors discuss fake medical emergencies. That means that unless your heart is currently sitting in a mini fridge in your doctor's second floor Hollywood apartment, this podcast is not medical advice. If you need medical advice or medical care, please contact your doctor.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackson Vane.
I'm Johnny Kolasinski. You might remember me from such podcasts as Season 1 of Hi, Everybody, a Bad Medicine podcast.
We're back.
We are back with brand new equipment, so hopefully we're audible. This is Hi, Everybody, a Bad Medicine podcast. Every week we talk about what's Hollywood gets right and wrong about medicine and how the body works. You can find this podcast online at Hi, Everybody MD on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can find us at hieverybodymd.com.
Or you can call us at 530-DOCTORB. That's 530-DOCTORB, as in this picture of balls drawn on my notes.
This week we are discussing Crank 2, Back in the Habit.
I thought it was Lost in New York.
Electric Boogaloo.
And we are joined once again by Doctors Greg Winter.
Hi, everyone. Everybody. Hi, everybody. It's been a long time, my friend.
And Dr. Courtney Nicholas.
Hi, everybody. New season, same old guests.
We watched the 2009 classic Crank 2 High Voltage. Jackson, why did we pick this movie?
Because it's the second one in the Crank series, and thought, why not go with
the first one was so much fun.
It was. I would say the first one was a little more fun than this one. This one was kind of out of control.
It felt like the epitome of like we did something really fun and then we tried to redo the same thing and it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's like this podcast.
Courtney, how did you feel about this one?
Well, I started a step behind because I missed the really fun part of Crank 1, and I was told, oh, you don't need to see the first one. You can just watch the second one.
I mean, you should have seen the first one. It was great.
Yeah.
I swear, every 5 minutes, 4 minutes, I should say, and we'll get to that part, I was like, what is happening?
So in Crank 1, Chevy Chelios?
Chef Chelios.
Chef Chelios had to go really, really fast all the time or else he would die. In Crank 2, Chef Chelios had to get electrocuted every 4 minutes or so or else he would die. Doctors, if someone has an artificial heart and they somehow lose the battery for their artificial heart, can you tase them?
You can tase them.
You can
Will
tase
that
anyone.
tasing charge them? No.
Okay.
It's not going to work the way you think it would work.
Okay.
No, I think it is going to work the way you think it would work. I think you're going to see someone get tased.
It's not going to work the way Jason Statham thinks it would work.
Yeah.
No.
I like a movie that has good internal logic. They explained it. I'm fine with that. It's just, it's not medically accurate.
I also like the medical care. Like when they set it up, he was falling out of the plane, right? And then he hit the ground, and then this troop of triads just came in and used a shovel and scooped him up and threw him there.
I grew up in Chicago. I've done my share of snow shoveling, and I was like, that was bad technique. You wanna lift with the knees, otherwise you're gonna hurt yourself.
Gotta use your back. Just use your back.
No, don't use your back at all.
For those of you who've seen Crank 1, that's maybe how the first one ended.
It is exactly how the first one ended. He fell out of a plane.
And then he bounced.
He bounced off of a car.
So when did he become a cartoon character?
Crank 1.
That was there's all those stylistic choices that make it fun. You should have seen the first one.
I heard it was good.
Actually, he fell out of a helicopter, I believe.
Correct.
Not a plane.
Yeah.
Helicopter.
And I spent a good portion of this movie looking up what happens to a body if it reaches terminal velocity and hits the ground. So, yeah,
What
I
happens?
think so. Everything I found was it doesn't seem like your body would be intact. It's hard. I mean,
Wasn't there one case of someone who had a skydiving accident?
there were 2 cases.
2 cases. Did you find that in your
read about
research?
both of them.
Okay.
But it's just that was what we talked about. I think after the first one is, if his body hit that car after falling that far, what would actually happen? And he wouldn't be an intact person.
No, he's not a bouncy ball.
Yeah.
But then that kind of sets you up for the next scene where they
scrape him off the ground.
They scrape him off the ground and then take him straight into the OR, and that was just a mess in itself.
Right. I mean, it's a back alley operating room in LA, and you've got people smoking in the operating room. You've got people ashing into the body. At some point, didn't a scalpel or something just fly into the chest cavity and they
I think he threw something.
ignored it?
Actually, I wish we would have checked a little bit when they were showing X-rays later, because he should have had a forceps in there.
There was nothing in there, and it was like a really exposed X-ray too, so you couldn't even really see the heart.
You'd be able to see some surgical steel though.
I will say him, like the surgeon launching stuff in the OR, reminded me of med school, because that happened to some of my classmates.
It happened to me for sure.
Me too, actually.
Get stuff thrown at you.
Not at me.
In the OR?
Yeah.
I would think that would be a no projectile zone.
But sort of
be surprised.
The surgeon is kind of the king of the surgical
Or
suite,
queen.
and I mean that in the very monarchistic way of whatever they do goes, and every once in a while emotions are flying high and stuff gets thrown.
Sometimes they get cranky.
I think I said this before, but I once got yelled at to sing with somebody over the radio that was playing.
No,
this has never come up.
Oh yeah. So in med school, the person that I did my surgical rotation with was the head of the department, was known for being just very malignant is the term we use for people that are hard to work with and they make other people sad. And she was very malignant. And the first time I was in the operating room with her, she made me sing radio tunes with her, or I was going to get a bad grade. It was not a thinly veiled thing. It was like, you better sing with me or I'm going to fail you.
They love to threaten your grade too.
Yeah.
I remember that specifically.
And you're so powerless as a med student. You're like, please give me a good grade. Unless you want to do something not competitive, then who cares?
And she actually was so she was so bad about it. She had the volume up so loud that another doctor from the next OR came in and said to turn it down, which is out of control.
Well, then your singing didn't really matter if the volume was that high, right?
But it's just, you like kind of look around the OR and everyone is just like, what do you do? Like, you have to listen to what they're saying, but it's just a very weird position to be in. But yes, it did remind me of med school.
Now, when you were in med school, did you ever have to replace a heart with a fake plastic heart?
Yes.
No. None of the jokes I had were very good. No. That was one of the things I thought they actually did sort of okay. This is weird because they didn't do anything okay. But when they brought that fake heart out, which is not what a fake heart, or not what a heart replacement looks like. It's definitely way too big and a whole bunch of other stuff. But where the valves were where the connections of the arteries,
the vessels,
was
great vessels.
The great vessels.
The
Thank you,
vessels.
Courtney did better on her test than I did. But where those connections are, there was like appropriately in the right spot. It sort of looked like what an artificial heart would look like if you were drawing one out of a book. But
then they plopped it in upside down.
Then they put it in upside down.
Well, my favorite part was sitting next to Greg and his commentary as this was happening. Like, oh, that looks like an actual heart. Oh, but it's going in upside down. You had us. Oh, and you lost us.
So close. All they needed was one person to be like, oh, no, in the book it looks like this. Just flip it over.
So they were using, I guess the plan was that Jeff Chelios was going to be a long-term organ donor because they were going to use his kidneys and his lungs and his pancreas and his Johnson.
Which it's impossible to take out a pancreas.
I mean, it's not really a thing people transplant. No. I know that.
It's just like so interwoven in there, and it's a mushy mass that you can't really take it out.
If you were going to use somebody as an organ bank,
Chelios would be a good call. His organs have stood up to a lot. And
there's really no reason to put him in with an electrical or an artificial heart at that point. Just leave him on bypass.
Why would you? Or I was wondering, would you start with the heart?
No. Especially if it's working.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that you need for all the other organs to work. So you would keep that in there.
Take the kidneys out.
If you're going to do a big transplant like that and take a lot of organs from people, sometimes they will end up on bypass. Yeah. BiPAP is a very different thing. That
helps people.
That's a breathing.
Yeah. That helps people.
Also a medical term.
Yes.
But you need blood to circulate so that your organs can stay oxygenated, and you need that to go for everything else to go. So if the heart's working, then you're going to use that heart.
Yeah. The other thing that was kind of weird too was no one was wearing a mask in that room.
I noticed that.
That was kind of gross.
It was weird because they went through the trouble of like putting on scrubs and like having tables laid out and stuff, but then nobody wore masks.
And everyone just charges in. The best way to protect an OR room is using a beaded curtain.
You know? That would really change the vibe when you walk in.
And I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice that no one had a mask on, especially in COVID times. Like I didn't even notice it until he used his teeth to open up the plastic bag.
Totally forgot about
I didn't catch that.
I don't even know what he was opening.
He was trying to open up the bag with the fake heart in it,
Yeah,
I believe.
when they first were trying to open it up. And
it was already covered with blood. Yeah, it already had blood all over it. He grabs his teeth and just open it up.
Sterile technique.
And then I was like, oh yeah, a mask is missing.
Sterile. No, wait, not at all.
No, not at all.
So that kind of goes to the biggest point of this whole movie is that he needs to get charged all the time to stay alive.
Because he's got the fake heart.
Because he's got a fake heart.
And a crappy battery.
Correct.
So it's kind of like me and caffeine.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Greg was the first to notice that it's about 4 minutes per movie time in between each charge. But also, he gains super strength every time he gets shocked.
Right. Which is tying into the first movie of...
Oh, should we have seen the first movie?
Well, Courtney, you might understand this better had you seen the first movie, but in the first movie, what happens?
Now I understand.
He drinks a lot of caffeine. Or
keep his heart moving.
Oh, he really does? I was joking about the caffeine.
No. He drinks lots of caffeine.
He does a lot of stuff.
Does a lot of
he
cocaine.
does a lot of stuff.
Gets shocked with the defibrillator pads.
So was the first movie the same as this one in which he couldn't do the same thing twice? Because
Yeah.
I feel like if someone needs to get shocked every 4 minutes, if you find something that works,
I was
use
saying,
that
He should have
every
taken
4 minutes.
Every cop's taser. Like,
Exactly. The taser seemed to work, but all of a sudden he's using friction and trying to rub himself on people. It just...
Maybe he's Borg. And he becomes immune to it after, 3 or 4.
Did you
I
like
got
the
it.
blank
I
look
got
on my face?
I still have the
You
blade.
got to
Such a-
modulate your phasers, otherwise,
I know that. Okay,
You're
I understand
only gonna
now.
get 1 or
Thank
2
you.
shots
I just
top.
needed that. I understand now. Thank you.
So can I ask you a question, Courtney? If your
course.
heart beats super fast and it makes you run fast, right? And your heart's super, super fast in this movie, it makes you super strong. So if a fast heart rate equals strength, does that mean babies are the strongest people in the world? Because babies have...
for their size.
But it's true. Babies have the fastest heart rate.
The strongest.
Well, strongest people.
Yeah.
You're right. With that logic, if heart rate equals strength, then sure. Babies are very strong.
Because their heart rate's like 160.
Actually, babies are very strong. They can hold their body weight up. So, like, you can put them on, like, a
Some
pull-up
might
bar,
say they're the strongest
and
people
they'll
in their
hold
world
their
for
body weight.
size.
You just have to be careful they don't let go.
But that was like the weirdest thing. Was that
I want to go back to baby pull-ups. Is that like is that a test,
No, it is not a test. Please do not attach your baby to pull-up bars.
Okay.
Do you do world
Wait,
world's
I'm
strongest
just saying
babies
they
competitions?
have the strength to do that.
Is there a reflex test where you have them
There's
grab
reflex-
your fingers and you like just see if
Yes.
they'll-
the grasping?
Well, you can lift them up, but there is a reflex test where if you put your finger into their palm, that they'll grip it.
The
And that
grasp reflex?
starts 4 months even before delivery. So the little tiny preemies will do that with
So
their
they
parents.
are the strongest for their size, pound for pound.
Sure. Let's test it.
It's like Ant-Man.
Exactly.
Going back to Chev Chelios, who is Jason Statham and not a baby, he gets shocked by tasers. He does a Frank Grimes and grabs an electrical box.
Yep, I wrote them all down too. He got
Old
shocked with jumper cables on his tongue and his nipple.
All right.
That doesn't sound right. Shock collar, skin on skin action, a cigarette break, high voltage box, a substation, a cattle prod, and then power lines.
That's a good amount.
Yeah.
It's a good amount of stuff that they wrote in there.
And all of it is very different in levels of electric shock.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and his doctor even says very clearly you want to use a low voltage transcutaneous charge. That might charge the battery in his heart.
The car jumping one, attaching those 2 points, your tongue and your nipple, especially if it's your right nipple.
Yeah, Jackson and I had a debate about whether right or left nipple would be better. Your heart is on the left side of your chest most of the time.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there shaking my head, asking what is happening in this movie.
I've mentioned this before. Like, I actually had a patient who was in cardiac arrest at home, and the family tried to bring them back to life by attaching them to jumper cables.
And how did that work?
Not alive. But they were kind of a little smarter about it because they did one on the foot and then the other one on the shoulder and actually got a proper art.
When we say a little smarter about it, this is a point where I mention once again that this podcast is not medical advice, because a little smarter about it was still really, really dumb.
Yeah, don't shock yourself with jumper cables. That's just poor decision. Especially like later on, that other guy who cut off his nipples, he can never shock himself anymore.
Yeah. What if he loses a heart?
What is happening in this movie?
see, that's the thing about this movie. There's so much nonsense that.
Exactly. Ugh.
Like the shotgun in the guy's bum.
But I also wasn't mad at it. It just.
I was a little bad at it.
But with all of those shocking moments, like, not a bad joke. With all those moments that he was shocked, he only caught fire once.
That's
no burns.
He should have caught fire when he grabbed the substation.
Yeah. Instead, he turned into
all of Los Angeles should have caught fire.
Yeah, the second one I don't think had as much electricity as the first one.
The
second power line.
Mm-hmm.
Like the power lines don't have as much electricity as a substation, I'm assuming.
Right. I mean, depending on where you are, I would assume that as well.
I make no assumptions. I know nothing about those things. I just think he would have been on fire from grabbing the substation. From many situations, I guess, is the point I was trying to make.
Let's talk about the strip club scene. There was a whole shootout in there, and then someone got their implants shot out, which made no sense at all.
Jackson's looking at me like I have implants.
Courtney doesn't have implants.
He doesn't know anything about this.
Nope.
I'm sorry. I do live in Southern California, though.
But I'm just saying, that scene was ridiculous. Only for the fact that it oozed out like
jelly.
Yeah, like if you ripped what's that? Stretch Armstrong, and then all the stuff just comes oozing out. That's what it looked like.
Have you ever done that?
Yes.
You ever put one in the microwave?
No.
Ever ruined a microwave?
Tell me more, Greg.
Greg has.
That'll ruin a microwave.
Did it explode?
It did not explode. It gets big, and then it can burn and smell really bad. And then you go, oh, crap, what are we going to do? You open the door.
You pick it up.
I mean, then you clean out a microwave.
Taking it back a little bit, hot tar shotgun in the anus. What would the effects of that be? I'm going to say, I'm not a doctor here, but they'd be negative.
I mean, how do you even respond to that?
I was more impressed about how far it went up. That went pretty far.
I think it goes without saying that things aren't. It's not an in hole for the most part. You should use lubrication if you're putting anything in your body parts,
but not tar.
Probably shouldn't use tar, and
there should be more blood.
It just felt that should be a moment that's like kind of fun and happy, and that sounds horrible. But it just like that should be like, oh, that hilarious thing happened. But it's just like it should be something where a hilarious thing happened, and instead of a hilarious thing, it just feels so juvenile and stupid.
Did you expect this to be a romantic comedy
between
those two guys?
But like, so in the first movie, like,
in the first movie, yes. What happened in the first movie?
In the first movie, when things like that happen, it's like it's just like the tone is different for some reason. Which makes no sense. It's the same. It's almost like a remake of itself, except for it's like more fun.
Are you saying that Crank 2 lacked heart?
Oh no. Here's the thing.
That's a good one.
I like Crank 2. I actually like it. It's just not as good as the first one. And then this is like my third viewing of Crank 2. It just wasn't. It's like not as fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Artificial.
One of the going back, we're all over the place.
Well, this movie's all over the place, so it's easy to do that.
Back to the strip club, chopping off somebody's elbow.
Oh my God, I missed that part entirely.
I thought I made you watch that part.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a hole, and okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think I thought it was his knee because I was looking away, and when I looked back, there was a hole where a patella could have been, but that was the elbow.
That was the elbow.
But then, if you feel your own elbow, unless that guy's really padded, you're gonna get bone.
Yeah.
Especially where they cut. Yeah. It was just like a clean chunk of meat.
It's one of those things where somebody like wrote it into a script, not knowing how it was going to look.
Yeah.
And then once you do it, it's like, oh, this, like, you can't just cut off the skin. You're going to cut off some real elbow pieces in there. And
some chunks are going to come out.
Well, also, that would do so much damage to your elbow. Like,
that was kind of my question. Is realistically is
you would
that arm gone?
You would be in a lot of trouble. I don't know what it would mean, but you would be in a lot of trouble.
A lot of nerves run through there, so your hand's not going to work really well. So that's going to be an issue. Because like think about your funny bone. Like you're going to flick there, and that's kind of where you hit your funny bone. So you're going to lose the ulnar nerve, which is the side with your pinky on it.
That's the one that's close to you.
Correct. But you're gonna not be able to fully extend your arm either because it's a chunk of bone that's missing.
You don't like my way to remember which side the ulnar nerve is
on. A great mnemonic. I think you would just need a really good surgeon afterwards.
Those guys don't have surgeons.
It depends on what got damaged, but probably you're going to damage bone. And if you also damage the bone in that, I think you would basically have a non-functioning lower arm.
Easily.
And he's still probably one of the people who got off light in this film.
That's true.
Yeah. He's still was he alive?
I think so.
Yeah, he was alive.
A lot of people got killed in that strip club.
He wasn't. Well, I mean, you don't know about collateral damage after stuff started, but it's like,
it's all over the place. Just like Venus from Hollywood's full body Tourette's.
Mm-hmm. So
is that a thing? Did anybody check on that?
What?
If full body Tourette's is a thing?
No.
Okay.
So what is Tourette's? Like not the pop culture definition, but like what is Tourette's really?
So it's a neurologic disorder where you have tics that you can't control, and usually it's genetic. The Hollywood one is where you just swear a lot, and that's what everyone assumes is Tourette's, but that's like one type of Tourette's called coprolalia.
What? How do you know that?
Because I have to deal with kids with Tourette's.
Oh, that's right.
And coprolalia just means
poop talk.
Yeah, poop talk. And it's just swearing all the time. But then there's other tics too.
So it's basically Latin for a potty mouth?
Yeah, pretty much. But a lot of the common ones are just movements it can't control.
A lot of medicine is just Latin for something.
Yeah.
But Johnny's absolutely going to use that word in real life from now on.
It's like, what is the one I learned from Rick and Morty? Corprophagia?
You mean eating poop?
Yeah. There's a therapist that tries to get people to stop eating poop.
So we had the scene in the ambulance, and number one, the ambulance happened to carry the battery for the artificial heart that Jeff Chelios had. Is that something your standard EMT would have on them?
Definitely not.
No way.
Especially for a specific make and I mean, unless that was the one that the patient that they had in the ambulance also had, and so they had his battery that they just took off. That's like the only way. No, the patient in the ambulance didn't have it. I mean, but that would be the only way they have it.
Yeah.
And they were planning ahead on
and
even where they were going.
And even if you had a patient that had a pacemaker that was malfunctioning.
Not a pacemaker.
But in general, some kind of electrical device in the heart that isn't working, they would just slap on leads and connect it to the defibrillation pattern, set it on pacer, and then you can externally pace someone.
You can externally pace somebody, but you really, really don't want to. I mean, that's the thing that you would avoid at all costs. Yeah. The thing about these artificial, the left ventricular assist devices, which they're sort of saying that he has, there's so many different kinds and they work in so many different ways. Like some of them are just a continuous flow. Some of them are actually pulsatile. And so if you have a continuous flow one,
those are trippy.
Well, I mean, right. Cause the person doesn't have a pulse, but also then you can't pace them, right? There's nothing to contract. So it's not doing anything.
Number two.
Sorry, Johnny.
No, that was super interesting. Question number two, they were talking about hydrating the organs.
Oh, because there was a triad member who got shot in the limo earlier in a fight. And I distinctly remember Greg saying, "Oh, those are intestines."
Yeah. I think you said, "Oh, he's not going to make it."
I did say that.
And then they put him in the ambulance, and they were pouring saline just on top of his organs the entire time.
For a second, in my memory of the scene, they had a spray mist bottle, but that wasn't actually the case.
No, I don't think so.
They were just dumping saline. Number one, is hydrating organs a thing?
Yes, for sure. So if you have an exposed intestines, usually what we'll do is we'll soak up some gauze and just put the gauze on top of it. I'm sure Courtney deals with this with babies that are delivered with gastroschisis, right?
So gastroschisis is when a baby's born with the intestines outside of the body. and you want to keep it moist, but actually we don't put gauze directly on it because you don't want anything to stick to it as well. So we put a baby in a plastic bag with some wet gauze to keep it moist and call the surgeons.
You look surprised, Greg.
He looks confused.
You put a baby in a plastic bag?
We do. It's the one time it's okay to put a baby in the plastic bag.
Wait, but okay, I'm sorry. This is for clarification. So you can't put the stuff directly on it because it will stick. But how come the plastic bag doesn't stick? Because it's saline. Okay. I talked through it.
Yep,
it also traps in insensible water losses too.
Okay.
So you can evaporate more moisture out. But yeah, you should be keeping it pretty moist.
But not just dumping bags of saline straight onto it.
Well, you're washing out blood too at the same time, but you shouldn't be doing that. And where is it going to go in the ambulance? It's just going to run on the floor, and then now you have a dangerous situation. It's all slippery.
Oh no, there's going to be a dangerous situation in this movie.
Yeah.
What could happen?
Slip and fall, workers' comp.
Then they'll have
Really
more
bad
organs.
stuff. But yeah, that's definitely not a normal thing.
My thought was if you're getting shot by a handgun enough times to be holding your intestines, not going to make it. You have other problems, yes.
And then he does die because Greg called it.
I did.
And they kind of just stop trying to save his life. Those are usually times where if you're not dead on the scene and you're in the ambulance, the EMTs are going to do CPR the whole way to the hospital. Like, they can't call it there. If they're dead on the scene, they'll call it on the scene. But if they're not and they lose pulses during transport, they got to get him to the hospital and try to save him.
Yeah, but in this EMT's defense, he had a guy with a gun asking for
a
heart battery.
And in the movie's defense, they were like, they couldn't even slow down to let Chelios get off the ambulance because they had to make it to the.
He jumped out. It's okay.
He had
landed right on his feet too.
He had to jump out in the most gingerly jumped out of a moving vehicle scene I've ever seen.
It was pretty
impressive.
impressive.
Nope. In Red, when Bruce Willis gets out of the car, that was pretty ginger. He spun the car around and just steps out of it.
This one,
I've been watching a lot of movies in COVID times.
I mean, there's not much to do. I will say that. I'm trying to think, what else did I write here? How did Bai Ling not die after getting hit by a car? That was a good one.
Yeah, there was a statement one of you made.
It was Jackson.
Her shoes came off. She's dead.
That was totally me.
Yeah, that was Jackson.
It's true. Shoes off dead. That's what I learned on the internet.
I've heard something like that anecdotally in the ER, but I also feel, it's nonsense, but I bet that means you got hit with a certain amount of force, which that definitely means something, but it's not as simple as shoes off dead. Especially in sunny places where where people might be wearing sandals.
Don't you people me.
What do you mean, you people? I mean sandal wearers.
San Diegans.
My shoes fell off walking down the street, so
Be careful, Courtney.
Speaking of things that generally people don't survive, having your head in a fish tank attached to various life support equipment.
my favorite part of the movie.
That was very surprising. And also, had you seen the first one, Courtney, you'd
Oh,
know
Lord.
that was the villain from the first one.
Now you tell me. So he wasn't some random head that they met in
Who knew
Catalina?
how self-referential Crank was going to be as a series?
You've seen it 3 times.
Yeah, but it's also just fun. It's nonsense.
You knew how self-referential it was going to be.
No, I had forgotten.
Why were there bubbles coming out of his nose?
Yeah.
So, okay, I've been thinking about this
Okay.
because it was bothering me because he doesn't have lungs. But you saw all the tubes going up his neck, like to his brain, and you got to think that there had to be some kind of oxygen delivery up there. Maybe some carbon dioxide was coming down, and because not going to the lungs, it's got to go out the nose.
That was my thought too.
Everybody's nodding in the room, so
Yeah.
I'm looking like maybe
after
this
after you said it, then I was like, no, he's got stuff going in, so it's got to come out. He doesn't have.
I'm trying to think.
He doesn't
this
have a
through, and
shotgun
it doesn't-
holster, so-
it
Well, the
doesn't-
thing
it's
though,
gotta
it wouldn't
come out
necessarily come out of the nose.
No,
it would
it
have to
doesn't
come
make
out
sense,
of the tubes going in. The
But then
neck,
pressure
maybe.
kind of equilibrates, and then water would fill up that air tube.
No,
No,
you're overthinking this nonsense scenario, Jackson.
I think we're all overthinking this movie.
his head's covered in water. So if you put a box in a water with 2 tubes, in and out, but then you put 2 holes in it where the nostrils would be, eventually water would go through the nostrils and then fill up the box.
I don't know what you're saying.
It can draw.
Oh,
it.
you're gonna draw.
Yeah,
I'm gonna draw
I-
for
I-
right now on
I
the
might draw it.
podcast.
I might draw it for the people sitting here.
The people sitting at home.
Yeah. So if this is all covered in water, and then there's 2 nostrils here, right? So you have air going in here and air coming out. Eventually, water would come in through here and then fill up this box, which is his head, and then it would fill up with water and then clog it down.
No,
The water would
you're
fill up his
assuming
head
that the
box.
nostrils are in contiguous space with the
So that
tubes going
so
in.
that air hole is just
They could be totally
I
separate
mean,
pipes.
we have no idea what was going on
No.
in the scenario where the guy's floating head was in
well,
jelly.
I feel like
and
we
had
need to
tubes
really
connected.
hammer this out, though.
I mean, no, it was water because he called for water when his head was out of water.
It doesn't make it water. It could be anything.
Yeah, that's true.
It was very yellow.
It was very yellow.
Pee is water.
Formaldehyde.
Pee is a type of water.
Pee is a type of water. Just saying.
It's the type of liquid.
That's my favorite part of Game of Thrones when they say, I'm going to go make water. It doesn't take much to entertain me.
Well,
This
apparently Crank
movie,
more than
this
Crank
movie
2.
did not do
apparently
it.
more than Crank 2 to entertain Courtney.
Maybe I just need to see Crank 1.
Oh, one of the other things. So like there are people that have these types of these things that assist your blood flow when your heart is not working very well, and the battery lasts for hours. And I mean, people can do stuff when they have these, and so sort of their arbitrary limit of an hour of time is a little bit on the low side. And then
But this wasn't one of those devices, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I have no idea what it was, but it's just like this type of stuff kind of exists, and people can live kind of normal-ish lives. I mean, if kind of like can't do a whole lot of stuff, but you can definitely go out and do stuff. And it does.
Climbing might be out.
Yes, rock climbing is probably out, but I mean, depends on your upper body strength. Usually, people that are getting this type of thing are in they're overall deconditioned in general because their heart's not been working. But they do charge. I mean, a lot of the stuff that they talk about in the movie, it's just like they just push it a little bit further because they do charge through the skin. They have batteries that are inside of your abdomen. It helps your blood circulate. It doesn't charge you up when it goes faster. In fact, it has a very set pulse rate, so you can't actually respond.
Can't get
to
stronger
things.
with a faster heart.
You can't overclock that heart.
Right.
Mercury thermometers in the butt, never use those ever.
I feel like it used to be a thing.
It used to be, but now
a long time ago it used to
But
be.
now in the days of not having to use something potentially toxic and can shatter in your butt,
Yep.
try not to use this. No, Johnny.
Johnny's got nothing.
Johnny had this very shocked
Yeah.
look on his face, and then he's like,
I'm leaving that one alone. I don't think anything that's recommended to go in a butt went in a butt in this movie. I guess that's all I'm saying.
And even in
Are you running through the list in your
yeah.
head?
No, yeah, you're right.
it's just like that. That's like that could be a kind of funny joke, and it just it was just weird. Like I don't know.
It was aggressive.
Right.
It was very, very aggressive.
I feel like there's a way to do that and make it funny as opposed to just.
It was as
and
aggressive.
it served nothing. He didn't even wake up from it.
No, and it was as aggressive as Biling attacking that guy's crotch, like that aggressive.
That was pretty aggressive.
That probably was one of she went for it, and that
Yeah.
And I always complain there's not enough blood. Not enough blood.
That was enough blood for you.
No.
There were a lot of scenes where there was a lot of blood.
Yeah. Yet the scenes that should have had more blood didn't, like the heart scene. That would have been bloody.
The actual transplant.
Yeah, I don't. And this might just be my dumb self. Hearts don't beat anymore the minute you take them out of a body for that long.
I actually don't know. I would think that they would. The heart has its own electric potential, right? It might still beat. What I thought was interesting was the way that they showed a heart beating was by it expanding, which would be the opposite. The heart squeezes to beat as opposed to inflates.
Yes.
I was right about something.
Yes.
You got one.
And actually, one of the things I wrote, I didn't write a whole lot down because
Because of Crank 2.
But like when they do the opening, when they expose the field for his surgery, that felt accurate. Like when people get cut open for surgeries, bleeding is controlled as they go through each layer until they get to what they want. And so surgery is often not very bloody. It certainly can be, but it's not super bloody. That felt accurate, except for the heart looked like a frozen heart model that they got from somewhere.
Which is the other thing I forgot to bring up was towards the end when they re-put in the heart back into him, they were keeping it in what looked like a freezer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they took it out and it was like
It didn't look like a freezer. It was a freezer.
It was
his college
a
boy mini
freezer or a
fridge.
fridge because it was the beer fridge.
Yeah.
But the thing was like smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Or
It's too cold.
too cold. The heart's not going to be able to beat. That's too cold. So that was weird. And he got burnt real bad. So that's going to affect a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, I think of all the injuries that we saw, a burn that covers all of your body it's up there. It's up there with
Not survivable.
yeah.
He's not going to make it.
It doesn't matter how Superman-y Chelios is. You're not going to make that.
Yeah, that's one of those times where you really need to keep people moist and decrease their secondary losses.
So they should have poured saline all over.
They should have poured saline all over him.
Courtney doesn't like that word.
I'm just laughing over here and thinking about how I'm picking the next movie.
I can't wait. That is all up to you to pick the next movie. We were thinking about this one for a while, though.
I think we were thinking it was going to be more fun.
It was fun.
It was fun, but definitely not Crank 1 fun.
No.
I'm going to be watching Crank 1. I have to catch up.
So it was fun.
You know what? You let me know after you watch it. Give me a call. We'll talk about it.
It was
We don't have to talk about it. I'll just listen to your podcast.
It's like you're talking about it with us, except not.
Except for you can't interject.
I will be interjecting.
So,
Don't worry about it.
So it was fun. It wasn't Crank 1, but I do have a question. The human centipede bills itself as 100% medically accurate. If that's our baseline, how medically accurate is Crank 2 High Voltage? Dr. Graywinter.
I think this is the least medically accurate movie. This movie has no regard for consequences of anything that happens to your body physically, and like none of the things that they're doing would do the things that they're showing it do. Like cigarette lighters might be a thing that people don't remember that were in cars, but he puts his finger in a cigarette lighter. Electricity doesn't come out of that. It burns you. Like it's heat. Heat doesn't even agree with itself. And zero. This is like 0% to me. That makes it sound like I hated it. I didn't hate it. It's just that it's not on the medically accurate scale.
What is our lowest?
Before it was Lucy at 10%.
Did Lucy use 10% of its brain?
I mean, 10% was probably the most accurate number for a movie.
Dr. Courtney Nicholas.
I typically inflate these numbers because I like to be positive about things. But I think I'm going to go with 5% medically accurate on this one. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, she stole my answer.
Did I? See? Maybe it's accurate.
Say 6%. Who cares?
No, I'm not going to $1 her.
This is not the Price is Right. You can pick the same number.
I'm not going to $1 her. 5% I think is probably right.
The human centipede was 20 times more medically accurate than Crank 2.
Yeah. I would even say 1,000,000 times.
Actually, by your score, it would be infinity.
Yeah,
times.
I know. I got it. I got the joke that I made. Don't worry.
I'm trying to think again. Is this worse than Lucy in terms of medicine?
People have brains.
The thing is, when you phrase it like that, it makes it harder.
Well, there's medicine and then there's concept.
Which one does this fall in?
Neither?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't want to say 0. I'll say 1%.
That is an infinity % improvement.
I know. Or 1,000.
Good on you, Jason Statham.
0 is tough. I mean,
0 is tough. That's basically saying you watched An American Tale and was trying to determine.
I want to talk about medicine, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. You know what? They have an artificial heart, and then they put in the body upside down. Like, I mean, it's 1%. 1%.
There were doctors in this movie.
1%.
Kinda.
1%.
I wrote it down. It's right there.
1.5%.
1.5%.
It's growing.
Jackson, you deal with emergency medicine most in this room. Yeah. At what point in exposure to electricity do people turn into actual puppets and tear through substations?
You mean the kaiju?
Oh, the big kaiju battle?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand
I had
the
never
question.
seen somebody look more confused. She was like, "What's happening? What's happening right now?"
You saw someone look this confused about an hour ago when we were watching this movie.
That's true. My question is, was ketamine involved?
In the making of this movie? Possibly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost certainly.
But I feel like if you did enough any kind of hallucinogen, you'll be in that realm. But you'll also be dead.
I also kind of like the joke of it where it's, it like shows the model people and then it cuts back to real life and like none of that happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the epic fight in their mind. This movie has its moments. 2%. No, I'm sticking with 1.5%.
1.5%.
Got to have room for if there's Crank 3.
It's not that. It's like this. It's not a review of the movie. It's medical accuracy.
Yes. The movie's fun.
If you've seen the first one.
Correct.
You have no fun? No fun at
No,
all?
I had fun.
No funs were had?
I had fun.
No funds will you have.
All right. I'm going to ask the question. I don't think it applies. Is there a way you would make the film more medically accurate while keeping the stakes dramatically high?
I think it's fun because it's not medically accurate. Like, you can get held up in the details a little too much, and it gets boring, where this is like the fantasy of it.
Maybe not having so many attacks on the rear. I'm just saying.
I think there's only 2, Jackson. You got to relax a little.
That shotgun one was a little out of control.
Counts as 3.
That's 3. You know what? 5% still.
I mean, to me, the biggest inaccuracy is just like that's not how any of it works, right? So then how do you fix that?
The biggest inaccuracy is everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like your heart beating faster doesn't give you whatever. It's just 1.5%. That's right. I'm right.
Sticking to it.
Okay.
I like your stick-to-itiveness.
Third question.
3.
So Crank 1, you do a bunch of drugs and you can't slow down or else you'll die. Crank 2, you have to electrocute yourself every so many minutes, every 4-ish minutes of plot, or else you'll die. What's Crank 3?
I like question number 3.
Which organ is going to be affected?
Well, it's still the heart.
It's the heart in 1 and 2.
So it still
And
has to be the heart.
it's different types of power, right?
Be whatever you want.
Hydroelectric
Electricity,
power, nuclear power.
kinetic power. What if he has to fall from a story every 4 minutes?
Wow.
Hollywood.
Final battle is on trampoline.
You're right.
What if he gets a nuclear reactor in his chest and he can't take a sustained impact, otherwise he'll blow up the entire city?
I think Marvel will have things to say to you about that.
For what?
Iron Man, he's got a nuclear reactor in his chest.
I mean, that's what Laura
There
said.
you go. Iron Man is Crank 3.
Yeah.
There we go. Chef Chelios becomes Tony Stark.
You know what?
The origin story.
I'm willing to have that retconned. I would be okay with it.
He has to remove, a small piece of shrapnel from entering his heart. And the only way to stop that is by building a giant electromagnet to suspend it from tearing through his heart.
I think he even starts it with a car battery, right?
He does.
He does.
This writes itself.
Yep. That's the origin story.
Kevin Feige, call us.
Yes.
All right. With that, folks, thanks for listening to Season 2, Episode 1 of Hi, Everybody. We'll be back next week with more fun.
Yes.
It's going to be that.
It's only if you're confident about it.
Yeah.
More fun.
And Courtney will watch the thing that precedes it before we do the next episode.
Yes.
All right.
Never watch a sequel without the first one.
Thanks, folks, for listening. Thanks, everybody, for being back to do this.
Yeah.
It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys too.
too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.